WSFA TV 12 Montgomery.
In his court order, Judge Johnson said many blacks who appeared in court were sullen, resentful, and hostile. That's what we encountered on ASU's campus today. Students were angry at news coverage of the discrimination case. One student told this reporter it's all right to discriminate against whites because they've done the same thing to blacks in the past. One of those subjected to the harassment and discrimination is a 50-year-old white Ph.D., Joseph Luskin. Luskin once headed criminal justice education here. After 2 years with no problems, this man, Dr. Thomas Knight, took authority away from Luskin and harassment began. Knight was quoted in court as telling a student, "I'm here to give white people hell." Luskin's attorney, Howard Mandel, describes the educator's treatment at the hands of Dr. Knight and other black educators at ASU.
One of our people, for example, was teaching in a classroom, and a black faculty member came to her in front of students and just ordered her out of the classroom and said she wanted that classroom tomorrow morning.
There are now those in the community asking why people who've been targets of racial bias and discrimination continue to find themselves in the same courtroom where so many landmark discrimination decisions have been handed down. A white close to the problem here at ASU told us it's not all the blacks here, but a few in supervisory positions who have refused to accept the court's ruling and have continued to harass and pressure some of the white instructors. University spokesman John Knight says the university intends to abide by the ruling.
We're going to cooperate wholeheartedly with the court and try to do everything that we possibly can to put forth a positive effort to try to erase the stigma that's presently hanging over Alabama State as it relates to racial discrimination.
So far, the controversy has given ASU considerable negative publicity and spotlighted a campus where many of the first sit-in participants came from. Many students from ASU during the 60s marched from Selma to Montgomery. Now students are met with questions from local citizens asking why, and they say they can't explain. There are some blacks here who will continue to try to discriminate against whites because of their color. There are others who are willing to abide by Judge Johnson's court order. But it's all left up to the Board of Trustees in terms of how the court order and when the court order is implemented. So far, we have no indication as to how much input the Board of Trustees have had in implementing Judge Johnson's court order. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News, Alabama State University.
The Alabama Commendation Medal was awarded to Donald Williams of Demopolis. According to the commendation certificate, Williams happened upon an accident last September near Demopolis and pulled 2 young people from a burning automobile, administering them first aid. Governor Wallace made the presentation. Wallace had more good news for the city of Demopolis in the form of a Preferred Cities Program certificate. According to officials of the program, about 70 cities are working toward this certification. Alabama Development Office Director R.C. Red Bamberg says the program is helping smaller communities make themselves available for industrial expansion.
Preferred City is a program that the AD office put in because so many cities do not have a paid industrial developer or somebody that can spend full time. So what we are doing is working with cities who do not have, calling them preferred cities, working with them on programs that they can instigate so that when we have an industry, we can say we can go to Demopolis because they have all of the things that are necessary for our industry to locate: water, sewage, railroads, and you name it.
The Preferred Cities Program certificate presented to Demopolis is the first one awarded. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
Each member of the Alabama legislature should realize an income of approximately $17,000 this year, a substantial increase over the $11,000 received by some previous legislators. Budget committee members can expect to receive more. The increase in income set off some conflicts among the lawmakers, but no definite plans have been announced by any legislator who says he doesn't want the extra revenue. Lieutenant Governor-elect George McMillan said today he would not attempt to second-guess any decision made yesterday in either house.
I further ask that any pay increase that might be improved be kept within the guidelines which I understand Alfred Kahn to have written Speaker McCorkadale regarding. And basically, those guidelines would have permitted a 30% increase on the following formula. I think it was an 8% for the first year, 7% for each of the succeeding years, and the recommendation was that it could come all at one time. And I said that that would roughly comport with $65 a day and $400 a month.
The increase in income for the state legislators is very much on the minds of most in Alabama today. We brought our cameras to downtown Montgomery, and this is the type of reaction we received.
I think it's very poor timing if they plan to have an increase at all. It's put a very bad taste in the public's eye, I think.
Well, my reaction is that I think public servants should be well paid, but I'm not sure I was enthused about the way in which it was done.
Well, I think that a lot of the legislators probably need a pay raise. The more we pay the legislators, the more qualified people will get in office.
Well, they do it every year. I don't think they need it.
Well, I'll go along with it. I'm 100% for it.
My reason why I don't think they should have gotten a raise is because they just keep taxing us, and we the little people are paying the big raise, and they're enjoying it. I don't think it's fair.
I think they went overboard. Anybody that can't live on $35, $40 a day just ain't trying. They're looking for some extra capital and padding the expense account, and that's exactly what they've done.
I wish I could grant myself one.
Well, the information I have is that a white male approached this lady's car while it was stopped at a traffic light and told her car was smoking. And then he jumped in the car and pulled a gun on her and brought her to this scene and had her handcuffed.
Was there anything else?
He took her money, I understand.
Do you have any suspects?
Don't have any suspects. White male, about 5'7", stocky built, wearing a tie with butterflies on it. About all I have right at this time.
I'm against expanding the city because that makes a bigger city, gives you more government and more government control. And I personally am just tired of government control.
It's very important in my judgment that the city of Montgomery respond and vote yes on this bill because it is important to the city as well as to the other areas.
For an in-depth look at the pros and cons of annexation, watch Annexation, an Explanation, Thursday night at 6:30 on TV 12.
Mayor Farmer, flanked by State Senator Bishop Barron and City Council President Willie Peake, said he was optimistic about next week's vote on annexation in the city. Senator Barron, author of the annexation bill, said the legislation protects everybody. Barron also said the act provides for all city services for the new areas as soon as possible after the move is made legal by voters. Polling places were then labeled by Mayor Farmer.
They are numbered and keyed to the legend at the top of the page. Also, there is an insert map of the county of Montgomery showing each of the polling places in the county. Each of those are numbered and keyed to the legend at the top of the page. This will be run with a supplement that will show every voter in the county of Montgomery, and it will have the number of the precinct in which that person votes by the side of his name, his or her name. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for everybody to find their voting place.
This is one of the important issues that's facing the city of Montgomery for 1979. And if the city will approve this annexation, then this will give us an opportunity to have some controlled growth and expansion into the city of Montgomery. And as if you're aware of the maps and the annexation in which has taken place over several years, you'll see that it's just been spotted, one piece here, one piece there. This way, when you look at the map and you can see that you're inside certain section lines, you'll know whether you're in the city or whether you're out of the city.
It's provided in the bill that all Salem city services must be furnished before the property can go on the tax rolls.
That's correct.
All right, at that point, the question was raised as to whether or not it would be the same quality of city services as are now rendered to the citizens of Montgomery.
We amended the bill again at that point.
So in order to overcome that objection, I amended the bill to provide that it must be the same quality of services as is now furnished to the present residents of the city of Montgomery.
Officials who support annexation say they face two problems in next Tuesday's voting. Number one, they say, is voter apathy that may contribute to a light turnout at the polls. And problem number two, they say, is confusion by the voter over annexation and consolidation. They say they've been trying to clear up that matter with the voters, and the vote tally in next Tuesday's election will show them how good a job they did in clearing up that confusion. This is Norman Lumpkin, WSFA TV News reporting.
My proposal really is to talk to other council members about it and to see if we can come up with a proposal and then go to the legislature. This is what we want to do. It's not an attempt to abolish the Board of Adjustment unless the legislature wanted to do it. That's not my intent. Then, of course, it's not my intent to give the planning committee any more authority, but I do think that in order to properly plan for the city of Montgomery, then we ought to have this authority somewhat combined, at least have it so that the one hand will know what the other hand is doing. And I think this is will require legislative action, which, of course, I will propose to the council members. If the council members don't want it, then I'm not going to try to put it over. I think it's good. In fact, I know it's good. And if folks don't want to do it, then if they want to just stay like it is, then I'm not going to worry about it.
It only means that the first round of challenges to the death penalty is completed. We still have two other rounds left, two more shots at the United States Supreme Court. I guess the bad effect is that it still leaves up in the air the question of whether or not the death penalty law here in Alabama is constitutional.
Okay, who is closest to dying in the electric chair? And isn't there an inmate who may use this as an excuse to do what he's promised to go ahead and let himself be executed without fighting?
Johnny Harris is probably closer than anybody else, and he's under a statute that wouldn't have been affected by this Supreme Court decision. There's another inmate on death row, John Evans, who's expressed a desire to be executed, but we're handling his appeal, and as far as we're concerned, we're going to continue on with it.
Do you think Evans will say, hey, okay, you've tried, you've failed, now let me go ahead and do what I said I wanted to do, and that is die in the electric chair?
It's difficult to say. I've not discussed it with John. We've not broached the subject since it's premature until the Supreme Court rules in his case.
Okay, why do you think the Supreme Court decided not to hear this case?
We think that they didn't hear it for two reasons. Number one, because they feel like they've already said all the things they want to say about the death penalty case, and taking the Alabama case would have been superfluous. They wouldn't have said anything new, and they've given the guidelines to the lower courts as to how to deal with these death penalty statutes, and I think they told us go back into lower courts and make your arguments there.
Inmate Jesse Jett says he saw inmates George Dobbins and Frank Moore kill Lowell Barrow during a 1974 prison uprising at an Atmore prison farm. Jett, in an interview with a Birmingham newspaper, says Johnny Harris did not stab Barrow, but none of this testimony was entered into Johnny Harris's trial, which netted him a conviction and death sentence. Why not? Well, information revealed so far says only because he was not available. Harris's attorney, Diana Hicks, says she was not aware of this testimony and that it would make a difference in the Harris case. Harris has received worldwide attention to his case, which has gone to the state Supreme Court. However, the Assistant Attorney General handling the case, Larry Newman, says that even if the information related by Jett is true, it won't have any bearing on the conviction handed to Harris. In Newman's words, even if Harris didn't stab the guard, Lowell Barrow is dead because Harris started everything in motion. Johnny Harris is the reason Lowell Barrow is dead. This is not the first time information has indicated that Harris did not actually kill Barrow. In the trial, no one even testified that they actually saw Harris stab Barrow. And Harris, in an interview with WSFA, also claims innocence. As for asking the two accused by Jett, well, George Dobbins was killed that day when guards stormed the cell block where the riot occurred. The other inmate, Frank Moore, hung himself in his cell before trials in the case began. Harris's appeal to the state Supreme Court was unsuccessful. However, the litigation continues, with Harris contending that some of his previous convictions were slanted. None of the prison officials at the Atmore farm have had any comment on these latest bits of information, which were signed in an affidavit by Jett over 2 months ago. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News.
Chamber has a lot of plans. First plan is to continue the program that we have now to make Montgomery a better place for all of us to live. We do this through, of course, our members and promoting Montgomery to outsiders and people that want to come here for tourist information, conventions. There's all kinds of programs that the Chamber has that basically to further Montgomery is to make it a better place for all of us to live.
Do you have any special projects on the agenda you'd like to elaborate on?
Well, you know, everything is done through the board of directors, and I wouldn't want to say that we're going to have any bold new programs without their approval. However, there are some things that we have in mind that may be a little bit different.
Okay, now if the annexation issue passes tomorrow, will that affect any plans for the next year?
Well, we feel that the annex will pass. The city seems to want this. The Chamber's position is that this would probably be good.
Officials say only about 12% of the county's registered voters turned out today. The proposal, however, appeared to pass in all 4 voting groups. The vote in the city of Montgomery and the balance of the unaffected county was heavily in favor of the annexation. There, the vote was 8,037 in favor and 2,205 against. It was this voting section that had to have an affirmative vote on the issue before the desires of the 3 proposed areas could be considered. The largest margin in favor of annexation came from the western section. The unofficial results from that area show that 436 people voted yes and 287 voted no. The story in the south and eastern sections was different. The east unofficially approved the annexation into the city by a margin of 16 votes, 186 yes and 170 no. The southern section came closest to turning down annexation. Again, the unofficial figures showed they approved annexation by only 2 votes, 192 yes and 190 no. All of the votes will be counted again tomorrow by the Montgomery County probate judge, who will declare the official result. Reporting from the Montgomery County Courthouse, this is Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
We set out to do it, and look, we're here.
5 years and 4,700 miles after starting his cross-country walk, Peter Jenkins climbed one last sand dune on the Oregon coast and saw the Pacific Ocean.
We made it! Woo!
Since setting out from New York in 1973, Jenkins met and married his wife Barbara, who walked the last 2,900 miles with him. Jenkins is writing an account of his odyssey for National Geographic. The magazine had photographers on hand to record the final steps into the Pacific surf. And in Idaho, where Jenkins worked as a ranch hand, one of many different jobs he took while making his way through 17 states. A disillusioned college student when he started his long hike, Jenkins now has high praise for farmers, ranchers, and everyday laborers. He calls them America's real heroes.
It's a great country, and it just needs more people. People are sick of hearing all the bad news. So that's what we're doing.
When asked what he'll do for an encore, now that he's walked across the United States, Jenkins replied, nothing. There's no encore necessary after this experience. Don Porter for NBC News, Florence, Oregon.
Personnel Organization, ESPA, concluded their 4th annual delegate assembly determined to be heard by the new legislature. ESPA is made up of about 10,000 educational support personnel, secretaries, bus drivers, lunchroom, and maintenance workers. At the meeting today, approximately 300 delegates passed a number of resolutions which staff workers will use to formulate ESPA's legislative policy. Director Jeff Dahlbehr outlines what he sees as the major resolutions.
I think that the support personnel of the state have determined that it's very important for them to get a salary increase for the coming year, and I think they've also set very high priority on some type of job security bill that will guarantee that they will not be terminated without given a hearing before termination. Those I see as two most important things. I think also they have said that they're going to go back home and build strong lobbying groups in each House district so that they can hold their legislators accountable for voting or not voting for what they want.
And what are you going to do with all these resolutions now that they've been passed?
Well, Glenda will take these resolutions and the staff will develop them into the proper form, and then we'll seek out legislators to sponsor them in the legislature, and we'll work for their passage.
On the issue of pay raises, Dahlbehr says the average salary of support personnel is approximately $4,200. That's below federal poverty level. And he says he doesn't think a request for a pay raise is being greedy, especially when considering that the legislature just voted themselves a 60% pay raise. The Assembly also voted to oppose any efforts to divert funds from the Special Education Trust Fund. But only last night, Lieutenant Governor-elect George McMillan told the group to be prepared for a fight in the legislature over diversion of education money. ESPO is a branch of the Alabama Education Association, but works independently of that body.
We do have our own delegate assembly. We develop our own legislative program. We have our own staff, but we come under the umbrella of the AEA organization.
Glenda Webb, WSFA TV News.
It is estimated that there are about 1,500 motel and hotel rooms in the city of Montgomery. In the days surrounding the inauguration of Governor-elect Bob James, practically all of these rooms, and then some, are filled. Motel and hotel operators we talked with all said that they were full for Sunday and Monday night. Some of these managers say they've been booked for the inauguration for as long as 4 months, and others say they filled up as recently as a few days ago. The average charge for a double occupancy in the city is about $30. And with so many rooms to rent, there are many happy managers. Tom Pennington, a local innkeeper downtown, says they have made some preparations for the activities of inauguration.
We've ordered a lot of extra food, a lot of extra beverages. We've got increased security 24 hours a day for about 5 days in a row.
What are some of the problems that are associated with inauguration and all the people that will be coming into town?
Well, some of the problems is just not having enough rooms for the demand. We're getting calls every day, 50 calls a day. Everybody is using some influential name saying, I'm a friend of Bob James, I'm a friend of the Lieutenant Governor, and we've just been sold out for 4 months.
Would they, if you had to, could you find any room, like if the president wanted to come down?
President Carter, we'd find one, I'd give him my own.
You mentioned security. What particularly in security problem-wise would you expect during a rush period like this?
Well, the biggest security problem I would have here would be on Monday during the parade, before the parade and after the parade, with just local people, the bands and all, just coming in to get water, to use of telephones, to use the public bathrooms and so forth.
About how many weeks have you been booked up for inauguration?
We've been booked up for 4 months.
Most of the inauguration crowd is expected to arrive beginning tomorrow. Not only have the motels and hotels in the downtown area been busy, but also those out from the city on the bypass. Manager Cecil Wynn says with all the activity, he really has not had that many problems.
Well, it's built the business up to 100% occupancy in the last 4 or 5 days, and we're booked up now up through this coming Tuesday.
Do you have any special problems that you're foreseeing during the period?
No, I don't think we're going to have any problems. It's we're all booked up, and it's all worked out real beautiful so far.
You calling in any extra security people to keep a watch on your place with it being full?
Yes, we're running a night security all through this inauguration weekend. We're going to have night security all night.
Of course, you've had people come to you for rooms, and you've had to tell them you're booked up. What efforts are being made to try to find people rooms? You calling around? Are there places anywhere in the near area that have rooms?
I don't know of any motels right now that it's not booked up. We have probably 8 or 10 that we have called, and all of them's booked up.
Montgomery is not the only community being affected by the massive bookings for accommodations around the inauguration time. As far away as Tuskegee, Auburn, Selma, Greenville, and Troy and Clanton are considered places for people to get rooms. Last word we had is that Clanton is already booked up. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News.
44-year-old Forrest Hood James Jr. was sworn in as Alabama's 51st governor at 2:43 this afternoon. His swearing-in followed that of other constitutional officers. Supreme Court Chief Justice C.C. Torbett administered the oath in a collective manner with the swearing-in of State Auditor Betty Frink, State Treasurer Annie Laurie Gunter, Commissioner of Agriculture and Industries McMillan Lane, and 2 members of the Public Service Commission, Pete Matthews and James Folsom Jr. Don Siegelman, Alabama's Secretary of State, stood while his mother held a Bible, and his father, L.B. Siegelman, administered the oath for Secretary of State. Justice Daniel T. McCall, Jr. was called upon by Alabama's new Attorney General Charles Graddick to handle his swearing-in ceremony. Lieutenant Governor George McMillan stood with his wife as Chief Justice Torbett administered the oath for the state's second highest office. Governor James included his entire family in the swearing-in ceremonies.
I, Father James,
do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama,
and the Constitution of the State of Alabama,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof,
so long as I continue a citizen thereof,
and that I will faithfully and honestly discharge the duties of the office
my office
upon which I am about to enter to the best of my ability,
so
help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations to you, Governor.
James said he sensed a mood of happiness at the state capitol, a mood he said he hoped would prevail. His inauguration comes on the birthday anniversary of the late Martin Luther King Jr., and the new governor made reference to King in his address. In his new beginning remarks, James promised equal justice for all, and a new Alabama free from racism and discrimination.
Let us bury forever the negative prejudice of the past. The same standards of justice, responsibility, and reward are for one and all. I stand on this commitment without equivocation, so be it. I believe if Robert E. Lee and Martin Luther King Jr. were here with us today, their cry to us, their prayer to God, would call for the politics of unselfishness, a people together determined to climb the highest plateau of greatness. It is then we have a new beginning. It is time. I pledge to you my best to this end. I ask for your prayers. Thank you. God bless you.
James' speech was short. His predecessor, Governor George Wallace, sat on the platform and listened intently. The new beginning means an end to an era in Alabama when Wallace was barred by law from seeking a 4th term as governor. As Wallace moved from the platform in front of the state capitol, his thoughts were that Alabama has a good man as chief executive.
My reflections, of course, went back to the time that I had served as governor, but the main idea and thought in my mind was that the man who succeeds me is going to make a fine governor. He's He's going to make a great governor for Alabama.
From the state capitol, George Mitchell, WSFA TV News.
Big tackle from Huntsville, Alabama.
This festive occasion has got about 8 hours left, and then the work starts.
What's the schedule tomorrow?
Well, I thought I'd come over here about daylight and stoke up the furnaces and get it good and ready for warm for the legislators when they come in, and Miss Anna Laura and Miss Frank and all those ladies.
Really, do you have a cabinet meeting planned, or how do you plan to start your day? Your first day as a official day?
We'll be seeing some folks one-on-one, and then I'm supposed to talk to the legislature tomorrow at 6:30. Revenue Commissioner, we've asked Mr. Ralph Egerton to serve as acting director for a while, and he's agreed to do that.
Thank you.
Sir?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Nobody in banking?
Insurance?
No, sir. So that's it at this point.
You've probably been asked it a dozen times already today, but let me ask you one more time. Your reflections of a day like today. How you feeling? How?
Grateful and humbled. Today, the weather. All the bands got in.
Judge Frank Johnson Jr. today ruled that Montgomery's 5-member county commission must be elected by districts and not at large throughout the county. Judge Johnson's ruling strikes down a law which has been in existence since 1957 after the passage of the U.S. Civil Rights Act. That's News Update. I'll be back with details on that story and more news at 10.